What is good, everybody? Welcome into a fresh, and new coaching company, the podcast. We do it as many days during the week as we can based off of my travel schedule, but it's great to be back here in the friendly confines. After my week on the road doing the Memorial, Scotty Scheffler getting it done as the defending champion 2 times in a row. How is this different from our morning show on Stadium? Well, we like to dive a little deeper into sports topics. It's not sports betting related. We do talk numbers a little bit, but this is where if you're really a sports fan and you want to come and talk about 2 or 3 of the biggest topics in sports, this is a great place for that every weekday around 11:15, 11:20 a.m. Eastern time. Now, I was reminded this weekend and reminded as we head into this week for the NBA Finals starting on Thursday, the NHL Stanley Cup Finals starting on Wednesday, that there truly is no substitute for star power. You know, here at BTT Studios, we do a lot of pro wrestling and we do a lot of sports. And in both worlds, there is no substitute for star power. Let's start with Scotty Scheffler last week. Now, is he the most exciting player? No. Is he the guy that you're going to say, man, he just electrified me today? No. But what he is the second coming, or as close as we're going to get in our lifetime, to what Tiger Woods did. If you want to talk about betting numbers, you cannot bet on this guy before the tournament starts. You almost have to hope that he falls behind by 3 or 4 shots just to get a number that you can feel good about if you cash and get the dub. Now, in my one and done league where you pick one golfer and you can never pick him again, I saved him for last weekend. And I'm now sitting in first place in my one, and it feels good. I picked Rory at the Masters, JT at the RBC, but they're all stars. And they all performed at the highest level when the stakes got even higher. Now, wrestling does the exact same thing. We're seeing right now John Cena in his last farewell tour is what they're calling it. Now, have they fumbled it? That's for another show. But John Cena is a big enough star. I think he's on the Mount Rushmore of all-time wrestling stars. And he's going out in December, and he says, I'm done. I'm never coming back. So they based an entire year in the WWE around this storyline. That's star power. We then saw a guy named R-Truth who got released, not renewing his contract. And he is 53 years old, been around for 20 years. But he's entertaining. He's a guy that can do anything, funny, can work with any big star, small star. He is a star. And that's why there's been this feedback and this reaction, this emotion to them not bringing him back. You look at all of the different sports right now, and I work a lot with the PFL. Our philosophy right now is let's stay in our lane. Let's focus on these young cats that are really, really good, and we've got a few OGs, and build them up into stars. But you can't treat them like stars until they are. And I would say the same with the UFC as well. But when you've got 2 stars, that's why pay-per-view, in my opinion, has struggled over the years. There's a couple of different reasons. But if you have a star and you put them on pay-per-view, they're going to sell those pay-per-views. Look what just happened during the boxing event in Times Square 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. You had some fairly big names. You had the first ever event shutting down Times Square, and they did an abysmal pay-per-view number. Why? Well, people are already paying a ton for the apps. I probably have 25 apps. You probably do the same thing. And when you have a Ryan Garcia who you're basing your entire promotion behind, even though there's 3 main events that night, and he hasn't fought in a year, and he's unhinged mentally and has shown that in the last year, or at least he claims he was faking all of it. But whatever the case is, they were banking on that star power to sell pay-per-views. That didn't happen. We're starting to see a lot of boxing move over to Saudi Arabia because that's where the money is. Look at the NBA Finals starting on Thursday. Is it going to be a highly rated NBA Finals? I would say probably not. If there were of the 16 teams that ESPN and ABC wanted to go to the NBA Finals, these would not be the 2. You've got the league MVP, very quiet, very subdued, ultimate team guy. Is he going to sell tickets? I love me some SGA. His number tonight or Thursday is 33.5. Love him. He's a lot of fun to watch in the regular season. He's a lot of fun to watch in the playoffs. But we're talking about the biggest series of the entire season. And if they're sitting behind closed doors, I promise you, watch for this. They're going to try to create so many different ways to make this feel big. You've got two small market teams, Indianapolis and Oklahoma City. Great cities to live in. Great fans. And if I was picking a place to play, they would definitely be at the top of my list. I come from Kansas. My hometown is 3 hours away from Oklahoma City. It's actually on the same highway as Oklahoma City. I absolutely love the Sooners and the support they get. Dallas is another 2.5 hours below that. So you've got some great teams and great universities and great cities. But is there star power, like truly star power for this year's NBA Finals? I would say no. Tyrese Halliburton, I love this kid. And I think if they get to a few more finals, that the casual fan will start to understand who he is. And he's one of the few athletes that the WWE actually embraces. Last night on Monday Night Raw, they made a Tyrese Halliburton t-shirt that you can buy at the WWE Shop Zone of him doing the choking signal when he hit that shot at the end of Game 1 in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Knicks. WWE, for all their faults right now, they understand cross-promotion. They understand they're a niche. And this is one thing, when I spent, a full decade in the WWE at the start of my career, that I always had to think in the back of my mind. We're a niche sport. There are very few wrestlers that cross over into the mainstream, or used to be. Rock did it. Cena's done it. Ric Flair's done it. Roman Reigns kind of has done it. But for the average person to know who a wrestling fan is, they've got to be a gigantic star. That's why The Rock's turned into one of the biggest stars worldwide. They don't even just call him a wrestling star or a movie star. He's just an A-lister. But they're a niche sport. And I would say we have a niche NBA Finals coming up starting on Thursday. When your TV market, and I did not look this up, but with my knowledge of TV markets, and for those of you that don't know how it works, New York's 1, LA's 2, Chicago's 3. I would say that both of these are outside the top 30, easily outside the top 30. So you don't even have big TV markets. You've got an MVP who a lot of casual fans wouldn't know a lot about, and he's kind of the Scotty Scheffler, to bring this whole discussion full circle, of the NBA. He's got a lovely partner who he just gave credit to during his MVP speech. He's got the cutest son in the world, and they have kind of become that unit. And locally, they're beloved. And he'll probably sign a Supermax deal, and he'll be the happiest basketball player in the world and have a great life and great for SGA. But if you're ESPN and you're ABC, what are you saying right now? Ratings equal advertising. And you charge based off of what they get. Sometimes they use last year's, but it really is all about who's in it right here and right now. They really wanted the Knicks to win. They really wanted Madison Square Garden to be a part of the NBA Finals. Hell, Mike Breen's the voice of the New York Knicks. He would have loved it too. He could have slept in his own bed for a few nights. There is no substitute for star power. Look at the NHL. They've had an incredible year. They had an incredible 4-team tournament mid-year. Thank goodness they got Connor McDavid in that thing, because there's not one player, if you're not a casual or a hardcore fan, that you know that plays for the Florida Panthers. But they're a great team. The Z-Man, he lives and dies by the Panthers. But Connor McDavid is the guy. Connor McDavid has been the face, the next Wayne Gretzky, if you will, because he's playing in Edmonton, and that's just an easy matchup or an easy comparison. But there is no substitute for star power. Now, for all the good stories there were this weekend, there are some that are a little bit, well, for somebody who loves sports as much as I do, this one hurts. I call 7 or 8 PGA Tour events every single year. I love doing it. I love golf. But in golf, Unlike maybe in team sports where you can still make a lot of money, sit on the bench, have a nice 10-year career, in golf, you have to perform or you're out. And now in the game of golf, there's so many good young players that the 40-something golfer is becoming extinct. But there's also players that are not 40 yet that have really struggled. And the way the PGA Tour does it, if you become a PGA Tour winner, you get to be in a certain time of the day where you're on TV, you get a lot of coverage, you play with the other best players. And right now, watching Max Homa and what he's going through on the PGA Tour is really, really hard to watch. So they have every year after the Memorial, they have the final day of U.S. Open qualifying, where players that are not in can still qualify to get into our nation's Open. And most of the stars qualify. But there's those few outliers. You're like, really? That guy had to go and qualify? That guy had to go and qualify? It's really hard to get into. They also have amateurs that qualify. So it truly is an Open. And you have to qualify for it through world rankings or through qualifying. Well, he was not qualified because the last 14 months, he's had one top 10, and that was at the Masters of 2024. His caddy left him after he rose to the top 10 in the world. And now his old caddy, now I'm losing it, he won with Justin Thomas in April in basically a one-off, and then he moved to another. I think he's on Colin Morikawa's back, I think it's Colin Morikawa. But regardless, you rarely see a caddy leave a player. It's usually the other way around. So then it came to a head yesterday as Max Homa was in a qualifier, and there was a lot of big names at this qualifier. Cameron Young ended up winning the playoff. Max Homa was there. Several other PGA Tour players that had just played in the Memorial the day before. They try to make it convenient. His caddy that caddied for him the weekend, they separated Sunday night. And he would not comment on why or if he was fired or what the case might have been. The bottom line is he did not have a caddy. So he went out to this qualifier, and it's 36 holes in one day. It's brutal. And he walked it carrying his own bag like he was back in junior golf or college golf. 36 holes. How could it be any worse? Well, he got into a 5-way playoff for one spot. And Cam Young, also a top shelf pro, who's not had a great year, also had to qualify. He birdied the first playoff hole to get it, and Max Homa ultimately is out. He could win this week in Canada and get in, but that's a long shot. That's a long shot. And I feel for this guy because try to imagine you're doing your job and you start to perform poorly, and all of a sudden everything starts to change, and you're in a world where it costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars just to compete every year with all the expenses that go into it. And you're not making any money. You're playing on TV all the time. You're playing with the top players because you're a proven winner. And you played in all of the majors the last 5 or 6 years. So put a little shout out there for Max Homa, who's one of the really good guys. He's active on social media. And it just hurts my heart as somebody who absolutely loves golf to watch anybody go through that. There are some other good positive stories as you're watching the Coach and Company podcast here on this Tuesday. So in women's softball, because every year I feel like college baseball and women's softball, they don't really get the attention that maybe they deserve because their season always ends when school ends. And kids are getting out of school, they're going on vacation, whatever the case might be. But we had one of the biggest upsets in women's softball in recent memory happen over the weekend. Texas Tech, who's never been to a softball final series. They beat OU, the four-time defending national champions. The event is played in Oklahoma City. Always has been. So it's almost like a home game for OU. And Texas Tech will play Texas. And Texas also has never made it to a finals. Excuse me, has never won a finals. They made it in 2022 and 2024, and they lost to Oklahoma. So congratulations to Texas Tech. It's also the first ever intrastate battle at the World Series between two teams, obviously from the same state. That's a great story. Not if you're OU, but you know what fans will say? Well, OU, they've had their four. Every girl on that team, if they're not a freshman, has won a national championship. So don't feel too bad for OU. But think about the dominance and the fact that it's not talked about very much at all. This should be a 30 for 30. This should be a docuseries that they should have been shooting the last 3 years, because how do you have that level of greatness to win 4 straight national titles in any sport, let alone women's softball? So that was an incredible, incredible story over the weekend. There was also this other story, and the NFL never go out of style. They're a 12-month-a-year league. There's always something going on. And in the world of podcasting, in the world of remote shows, everybody's got an opinion. And the opinion on Shedeur Sanders before the draft was that he was unprepared. He didn't throw at the combine, which wasn't unusual, but he then refused to do a lot of things. And all these stories are starting to come out that he took a FaceTime call during an interview with one team and kept the call on. That his interview with the Giants, they asked him back a second time, and he still did not impress them. He was so, in their word, at least the way it was described, almost disrespectful in the process, because he treated the NFL draft like, I know I'm going 1 or 2. It's going to be Cam Ward or it's going to be me, Shedeur Sanders. Well, his dad, very protective. His dad said on many occasions, I've already talked to teams. We're not going to make it public, but there are certain places that he simply will not go. Similar to Eli Manning 20-some-odd years ago. Well, the difference is that Eli Manning came after his brother, who was the number 1 pick in the draft. And they knew the lineage of that family at the quarterback position. Dad was pretty good, too. The other son is going to be great when he comes out of Texas. But Deion Sanders was great, yes, as a defensive back, as a baseball player, not as a quarterback. And he certainly was not a guy that you'd say, man, ultra prepared. So if you're his son and you're playing the most difficult position in all of sports to play, you want him to be prepared. And when he walks into a team meeting with all the coaches there and he's being asked, hey, write up this coverage, how would you beat it, et cetera, he's got to be able to do that. And he can't do it by saying, well, don't want to throw. And then going everywhere and look at my ice, look at my $300,000 car. That turned a lot of people off. Well, apparently, Deion Sanders, in an interview on a podcast, said that he was hurt by the narrative before the NFL draft that his son came in unprepared. And that's why he dropped from a first-round pick all the way down to the 5th round. Deion Sanders, as much as he entertains me, as much as I love him, does not live in the reality that we all live in right now. They have created a bubble in Colorado. They just redid his contract. And I had a buddy who used to coach there. Colorado did not have a lot of money. They did not have a lot of NIL money, which is what you need, at least right now, until there's parameters, to go out and get the players at the level in order to compete in the Big 12. So in comes Deion. Instantly, the money train starts. Here comes Nike. He's a Nike guy. And so in 2 short years, he gets his deal redone to the tune of $10 million a year plus. That's not a reality that happens for very many people. So Deion, everything's gone right ever since he decided to go to Jackson State. And so now his son runs into his first roadblock that potentially could cost him millions. When you're a first-round pick, your contract, your finances are way different than a 5th-round pick. And just in the first 4 years, he's going to lose millions. I saw some reports that said, he should have stayed at Colorado. He would have made so much more in NIL money. NIL money is, and we've got a great interview dropping today with a young lady named Sam Green. She is the founder of AthleteCon. And what AthleteCon is where athletes come and businesses to all meet in one place to truly see who out there can have your name image, and likeness and make money off of it for the company. That's what NIL was meant to do. It was not meant to show up as a right tackle and get a check to play for Tennessee or Texas or Oklahoma. That's not what NIL is. The interview, you guys got to watch it. She's absolutely amazing. And she has a partnership with Livy Dunn, of course, out of LSU, the girlfriend of Skeens. And the information she told us, it was like a breath of fresh air. And if you're watching this right now and not listening to the audio, you'll see her in the full screen up on the page. It really, really educated me a ton on this interview. And I'm really hoping one of my goals for Coaching Company is to be live at AthleteCon next year for AthleteCon 3, because she's bringing in big companies like Marriott, JBL. The list goes on and on. They meet these athletes face to face, and the ones they like at the end of the event, they hand out NIL deals for athletes who were there or who they like. That's truly name, image, and likeness. And so hopefully Sam Green can kind of be the jump starter for getting this incredible NIL situation under control. Because Shadir Sanders is the face for what NIL is not supposed to be. I didn't see him in a ton of commercials. Some, not a ton, but it's got to change. Because with all due respect to all of the right guards out there, nobody knows who you are. And they've been forced into writing checks to get these linemen or tight ends or whoever it is, the non-star players, to come to their university to compete for the millions and millions they would make getting into the playoffs. So it's a cyclical thing. It all matches up, but it's got to have something on it. So you definitely want to check out that interview today. And if you're Shadir Sanders and you're any young quarterback looking at what he did this year, maybe you learn from it. And maybe he'll get, this would be pie in the sky for me, if he got to a point where he owned all the mistakes that he made during this process. And then he tried to help younger kids who come out of school, especially the ones that come out early. Basketball's way worse than football. At least in football, you physically know. And you kind of have the combine to tell you, okay, I'm ready to go. Most people know. In the NBA, you only got 64 spots. And this has always driven me nuts as a former basketball college player myself, is you've got 400 to 500 kids every year that come out of school early because you got to go for 1 year or play somewhere else for 1 year. And you got 400 kids and only 64 can be picked. That's it. Everybody else, undrafted free agent, you got to make a spot. And you could have stayed at Kentucky. You could have stayed at Texas and probably made some NIL money in the process. They get really bad advice, and it drives me insane. And it just continues. And a lot of these kids, with all due respect, this is the best it's going to get for them. And they need to be in this kind of environment as long as possible so they can have really good mentorship, learn how to live life, learn how to take care of themselves, and then go on to whatever it is they're going to do. But most of these kids do not make it to the NBA. But that's never talked about. We talk about the kids who do, or the kids like Shadir Sanders who do. It's fascinating. And I think over the course of the next 5 years before we get to 2030, you're going to see a lot of change when it comes to NIL and all of that stuff. Matt says the kid will show all the haters. Matt, I hope that he does. I don't wish ill will on anybody. It is hard to play at the highest level. And when you're dealing with all the outside noise as well, that's really hard to deal with also. We never go longer than 20 or 30 minutes here, so I encourage you to subscribe, share, like everything that we do. We have 2 different YouTube channels. Our Behind the Turnbuckle BTT channel that has all of our pro wrestling content on it, and then also our Coaching Company brand new YouTube channel with Coaching Company and Weekday Wagers, which is our afternoon show with DG, Mark, and Robbie Hockey. So enjoy your day. Thanks for hanging out with us. Hopefully you learned a little bit. Hopefully you enjoyed it a little bit, because to me, sports is everything. Sports is life, and I absolutely love it. All right, we will see you guys tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, live on Stadium or YouTube or social media. I don't care how you consume us. I just care that you consume us. I am the coach for Producer Man Behind the Scenes. We'll see you next time. There's only one Coach and Company, the podcast.